Greetings to my dear guests on this video. I wish you a pleasant viewing and look forward to your feedback in the comments. They say the morning rush is a test of grace under pressure. For me, it was more like a live-action obstacle course starring over-caffeinated analysts, swinging laptop bags, and the unspoken tension of who would make it to the elevator first. It was just another Thursday. Or so I thought. The lobby of Straithwell & Company buzzed with its usual controlled chaos. I balanced my caramel oat milk latte in one hand and clutched a folder of marketing revisions in the other as I dodged a huddle of interns near the security gates. I was late, of course. I'd stayed up too long tweaking our quarterly deck because our biggest client and my personal favorite, Virion Industries, wanted to see more edge. Whatever that meant. I was half speed walking, half apologizing as I weaved through the crowd toward the elevators, my mind already in the meeting room 3 floors up. That's when I turned the corner near the corner atrium, and bam! I collided full force with someone coming the other way. My latte exploded between us, launching warm foam across his crisp white shirt. His briefcase hit the floor, bursting open like a popped canister. Documents scattered across the marble floor like a paper blizzard. "Oh my God, I'm so sorry!" I gasped, instinctively kneeling to gather the papers. "What the hell do you think you're doing?" the man snapped, voice booming with outrage. I looked up, tall, mid-40s, pinstripe suit so sharp it could draw blood. His face was a storm of disbelief and rage. I froze. I'd never seen him before, but something about him screamed power, and not the good kind. "You've ruined a $400 shirt," he barked, flicking his jacket off his arms with theatrical disdain. "And these documents, these were for the board." I didn't see you, I swear," I started, fumbling with the papers, which were now smudged with droplets of latte. "You clearly didn't," he cut me off, yanking them from my hands. "Do you even work here?" My face flushed. "Yes, I'm on the accounts team, marketing." He snorted. "Figures." My mouth opened, but nothing came out. The crowd around us was silent now, heads slowly turning. My chest burned from embarrassment, coffee seeping into the hem of my blouse. "I don't have time for this," he hissed, gathering what remained of his pride and papers and stomping off toward the executive elevators. I stood there, stunned, my heart still racing. The worst part? I had no idea who he was. Not yet. But I'd find out soon. Too soon. And that moment, one latte-soaked collision, was about to change everything. After he stormed off, I stood there, frozen in the puddle of humiliation and oat milk. The lobby had gone back to its usual hum, but a few glances still lingered. A security guard gave me a sympathetic shrug before handing me a bundle of paper towels. I knelt back down, this time to clean, not just collect. My hands shook a little, not from the heat of the coffee, but from the burn of his words. "Do you even work here?" echoed in my mind like a bad song stuck on repeat. As I mopped up the mess with napkins that disintegrated on contact, I could feel the fabric of my blouse clinging cold against my back. I hadn't even had a sip of the coffee I'd bought to steel myself for the pitch to Virion. Now I was sitting in a puddle of it. That's when I heard the footsteps again. Sharp, deliberate. He was back. Great, I thought. Round 2. "Look at you," he said, looming above me. "A mop suits you." I didn't look up. I didn't have to. His tone was dripping with disdain. He probably thought he was being clever. Some self-appointed king looking down on the help. And sure, from this angle, I must have looked like just that. Some girl on her knees scrubbing the floor. But I'd had enough. I slowly stood, smoothed out my skirt, and met his eyes. "And silence suits you better," I said coolly. My voice didn't shake this time. He blinked. Just for a moment. I saw something flicker behind those eyes. Surprise, maybe. Or the realization that I wasn't the pushover he expected. Without waiting for his response, I tossed the soggy paper towels into the bin and turned on my heel. I had exactly 9 minutes to get to the 6th floor, pull myself together, and convince a client not to drop 6 figures. I didn't have time for whatever power play this man thought he was waging. Let him choke on his coffee stains. I had bigger things to worry about. What I didn't know then, what none of us knew, was that this wouldn't be the last time our paths crossed, and that the next time, Well, he wouldn't be the one towering over me. Not even close. By the time I stepped off the elevator and onto the 6th floor, my blouse had dried stiff, my coffee was a distant memory, and I'd mentally rehearsed my client pitch so many times I could have delivered it in my sleep. I dropped my bag next to my desk, which sat quietly tucked in the far corner near the windows. It was the kind of space no one fought over. Private, but forgotten. As I booted up my computer, Amanda popped up over the divider between our desks like a curious meerkat. Her blonde curls bounced as she leaned closer. "You made it," she whispered, looking me up and down. "What happened to you?" I opened my mouth, then stopped. How do you explain a surprise coffee explosion with a side of public humiliation in a way that doesn't make you look like a total disaster? "Long story," I murmured, brushing a damp lock of hair behind my ear. "Involving gravity and very poor timing." "Oof," she said with a grin. "Tough crowd this morning. You'll want to hear this, though. We've got a new hire." I raised an eyebrow, reaching for a pen. "Another sales exec?" "Nope." Amanda wiggled her eyebrows. "SEO specialist. Big deal hire. They're introducing him later today in the conference room." "Really?" That actually surprised me. We hadn't had a dedicated SEO expert in years. Our digital marketing had always been more of an afterthought, patched together by freelancers or someone's cousin with a certificate. "Well, that's promising. Maybe things are finally shifting." "Exactly," she said, her voice a little too loud. "Honestly, with all the new clients we're picking up lately, I think we're on the brink of something big." She wasn't wrong. The last few months had felt different, bigger, heavier. Straithwell and Company had always been known in certain circles, boutique, strategic, agile. But suddenly, we were landing clients that made people pause mid-coffee sip. Virion Industries, Luxia Group, Norgate Capital, names that carried real weight, companies that played at the top tier and expected results to match. And behind a lot of that, quietly, carefully, me. I'd nurtured those relationships. I'd poured hours into strategy decks and client calls, often stepping in when others dropped the ball. I wasn't flashy, but I delivered. Every time. I smiled faintly. It'll be good to have some backup on the digital side. Maybe even make our campaigns more cohesive. With the kind of accounts we're pulling, we need to elevate. Amanda nodded. Exactly. I think things are about to get a lot more exciting around here. And for a moment, I believed it. For a moment, I felt something like hope. A flicker that maybe, just maybe, the tide was turning. That the company was starting to value depth over appearance. That I wouldn't always have to be the unseen force behind every success. I had no idea what was coming. No idea that the man they were about to introduce wasn't just some new hire. He was the same man who'd looked down at me this morning and decided I belonged beneath his shoes. The air in the conference room was thick with anticipation. I stepped inside just as Marcia was clearing her throat to begin the introduction. I tried to blend into the crowd, quiet, composed, unnoticed. My earlier run-ins still echoed in the back of my mind, but I tucked those emotions away like a file I didn't have time to open. I spotted him the second I walked in. Vincent Hale. He stood at the front of the room with Marcia, hands clasped behind his back, posture perfect, expression unreadable. His eyes skimmed the crowd, polite and cool, but the moment they landed on me, I felt it. Recognition. His gaze didn't flicker. No smirk, no wink, just a long, calculating look like he was filing me away in some mental folder marked inconvenient. I forced my face into a neutral smile and nodded slightly. A peace offering, an adult gesture, because we were adults, right? That morning's awkwardness, embarrassing as it was, had to be water under the bridge now. Surely he wasn't going to hold a spilled latte against me like a middle school grudge. This was work, professionalism, logic. At least, that's what I told myself. Marcia gave the usual warm welcome speech, praising Vincent's years of experience, his impressive client portfolio, and how lucky we were to have him on board. The room clapped, and he stepped forward to say a few words. "Thanks, Marcia," he said, voice smooth but clipped. "I'm excited to be here. I've reviewed some of the current projects, and I look forward to optimizing our digital footprint, cleaning up a few messes, so to speak." I felt that. Subtle, but pointed. His eyes grazed mine again, then moved on. As the meeting wrapped, people clustered into polite little groups to introduce themselves. I didn't move. I figured I'd let the chaos clear before I made my way out. But Vincent made his move first. He approached slowly, and my stomach tightened. I smiled again, cautiously. "Mr. Hale." "Betty, right?" he said, like he hadn't shouted at me hours earlier. "Marketing." "That's right." He didn't offer his hand, just looked me up and down, not crudely, just analytically. "Let's keep things professional," he said, his tone firm but not overtly hostile. "I don't care about earlier. Accidents happen, but I'll be watching your work." I blinked. "Excuse me?" "Your performance. I like to know who I'm working with and who I'm cleaning up after." There it was, the sting. Not fire, not fury, just frost. I bit the inside of my cheek and nodded. "Then I guess you'll get a good look." His lips twitched, almost a smirk almost, but he said nothing else. Just turned and walked away like the whole interaction had been part of some checklist. I stood still for a second longer, letting the heat rise in my chest before I buried it. He wasn't here to be my friend. Fine. But if he was going to watch my work, he better be ready for a show. The following Monday, an email went out to the entire team. Subject: Week 1, Internal Audit and Optimization Review. From Vincent Hale. I skimmed the message, coffee in hand, my new one, iced this time, and safely far away from any potential collisions. Vincent was conducting a performance review of our workflows, client handovers, and campaign effectiveness. He would be shadowing key team members and conducting one-on-one assessments throughout the week. His words were stiff, clinical, a touch too heavy on the phrase realignment for efficiency. Most of the floor buzzed with quiet panic. Me? I wasn't worried. I knew my numbers. My client retention was nearly perfect, and my campaign success rates spoke for themselves. The company had kept me through 3 rounds of budget cuts, promoted me twice in 2 years, and trusted me with accounts we couldn't afford to lose. So when I saw my name in the schedule, Tuesday at 3:15 p.m., review with V. Hale, I didn't flinch. In fact, I almost looked forward to it. Almost. Tuesday arrived fast. I walked into the glass-walled meeting room right on time, notepad in hand, hair pulled back, no nonsense. Vincent didn't look up at first. He was typing something, his jaw set tight. Finally, he spoke without meeting my eyes. "Betty Collins, marketing lead on Virion, Luxia, and Gossinger accounts, correct?" "That's right," I said, sliding into the chair across from him. He glanced at my file, of course he had a file, and then finally looked up. No HR complaints, no missed KPIs in the last 8 quarters. Management notes are generous. There was something almost bored in his voice, like it was too easy. I crossed one leg over the other and kept my tone light. "I take my work seriously." "I'm sure you do," he said, folding his hands. "But that doesn't always mean it's optimized." I blinked. "Excuse me?" Vincent leaned back. "My job isn't to keep things comfortable, Miss Collins. It's to get results. I'm not here to pat backs or maintain the status quo. I've been brought in to fix what's bloated, inefficient, or outdated." I stiffened slightly. I wasn't aware anything was broken. He didn't miss a beat. "Then you haven't been looking hard enough." There it was again, that undertone. Not quite hostility, but something just as sharp, as if he'd already decided I was part of the problem, as if being good at my job somehow made me a target. I kept my voice steady. "If there's something specific you'd like me to improve, I'm open to feedback." "I'm sure you are," he said with a clipped smile. "We'll be watching." We, not I. I left that room with my spine straighter than when I entered, but my thoughts were already racing. Something told me Vincent Hale wasn't just here to audit processes. He was here to shift power, and I wasn't about to let that happen quietly. By Thursday, the tension on the 6th floor was thick enough to chew through. People whispered in break rooms, Slack threads became suspiciously quiet, and more than one team member left their one-on-one with Vincent looking like they'd swallowed a lemon. But I stayed steady, focused. I'd made it through the review, checked every box, and delivered clean metrics on every campaign. Still, something gnawed at me, something I couldn't quite name. A feeling, a shift. It started subtly. I noticed my proposal documents, usually greenlit by midweek, still sat in the shared approval folder, untouched. 3 files, all mine. I watched newer submissions pass through the digital chain while mine lingered with a bold red pending label. Then came the reassignments. I logged in one morning to find that our long-term client, Gossinger Retail, the one I had personally brought in 2 years ago, was now listed under Team B. No explanation, no meeting, just a quiet transfer. I asked Amanda, and she just shrugged, eyes wide. No one said anything to me. At first, I thought it had to be a mistake. Maybe a temporary shuffle. I'd handled Gossinger from their very first onboarding call. I knew their brand voice better than they did. So I did what any rational senior employee would do, I asked. I knocked on Vincent's office door later that afternoon. He didn't look up from his laptop. Yes? Sorry to interrupt, I said calmly, but I noticed Gossinger was moved from my portfolio to Team B. I haven't been informed of any changes. He tapped something on his keyboard. Correct. It's been reassigned. Why? Now he looked at me. Cool, unblinking. Because you're not coping. I froze. Excuse me? You're falling behind, he said simply. Your output isn't keeping pace with the volume we're moving into. I reviewed your response times. Your turnaround on Luxia's third-quarter proposal was almost 48 hours. That's too long. I blinked. I was waiting on product specs from their side. I flagged the delay in the notes. He didn't flinch. Not my problem. I stared at him. So you're taking clients I've worked years to build because of one misinterpreted delay? He shrugged. I'm not taking anything. I'm reallocating resources to where they'll perform better. If you have a problem with that, you're welcome to speak to Marcia, but I suggest you focus on improving your performance instead of chasing status. He returned to his screen without waiting for my response. I walked out of that office slowly, my heartbeat roaring in my ears. It wasn't a misunderstanding. It was deliberate. And it wasn't about performance. It was about power. Vincent Hale wasn't just trying to streamline our workflow. He was trying to erase me. The email came just after lunch, a ping that split the tension in the air like lightning through glass. Subject: Mandatory Feedback Session, Conference Room. A time: 2 p.m. from Office of the CEO. Mandatory was bolded. They didn't even bother pretending it was optional. I read it twice, then leaned back in my chair. Amanda's message came seconds later. This isn't a regular check-in. People are freaking out. I could feel it in the air. Desks were quieter than usual. Slack channels were dormant. Every conversation was happening in low voices near the coffee machine or over a shared screen behind half-closed doors. We'd all seen what was happening. Files being reassigned. Priorities shifting without warning. Good people being quietly edged out or reduced to support roles for projects they once led. Vincent had been here a week. Jennings had been CEO for less than 2 months. But already, it felt like the walls were moving, and no one could tell if they'd still be standing tomorrow. Still, I went. I told myself I had nothing to worry about. My metrics were clean. My clients loyal. I had never missed a deadline, never had a complaint lodged against me, never caused office drama. I wasn't just reliable. I was a damn good strategist. And everyone who'd ever worked closely with me knew it. I walked into Conference Room A at 1:57 p.m., back straight, chin up. I sat in the third row like always. I didn't avoid eye contact. I wasn't scared. Not yet. People filed in slowly, shoulders tight, faces stiff. Amanda slid into the seat beside me and whispered, "You look too calm. It's unnerving." "I'm just tired," I replied, "of pretending this all makes sense." Vincent entered first. Dressed to impress, of course. Navy suit, steel gray tie, not a single wrinkle out of place. He barely glanced at the room. Just sat at the edge of the front table, tapping something into his tablet. Then Jennings walked in. He looked the same way he did in his onboarding videos, tall, lean, with the kind of jawline that corporate bios always try to turn into a brand. His suit was darker than Vincent's, his voice smoother, but it was his eyes that always unsettled me. Cold. Sharp. Not calculating like Vincent's, just indifferent, like everything he saw was beneath him. "Let's get to it," he said, skipping any pleasantries. "You've all heard that we're restructuring. That's not just about operations. It's about performance, alignment, and most of all, value." He paused to let the words settle. "We've conducted a comprehensive review of your roles, responsibilities, and results. Some of you have met expectations. Some of you have exceeded them. And some of you—" He looked directly at me. My chest clenched. "Some of you are living on borrowed time." He didn't look away. Then he spoke the sentence that would burn itself into my memory forever. "Who could have thought of hiring her for this job?" he said flatly. "Being a cleaner is the best she can do." Silence. Heavy, choking silence. I felt the breath leave my body. I saw Amanda's head whip toward me, eyes wide in horror. Someone in the back muttered, "Jesus." A few others shifted uncomfortably, but no one said a word. No one stopped him. He moved on without so much as a pause, as if I were an anecdote in a slideshow. As if my years of work, my contributions, my relationships, my late nights and early mornings meant nothing more than a cheap joke for shock value. I sat frozen, eyes locked forward. I didn't cry. I didn't flinch. I didn't let him see the fire he had just lit inside me. But I knew. This wasn't just disrespect. It was dismissal. And I was done. I stood, in front of everyone, calm, measured, deliberate. I walked out of that conference room without looking back. I reached my desk, opened my laptop, and drafted my resignation. Subject: formal resignation. Effective immediately message. I'm grateful for the opportunities I've had at Straithwell & Company and proud of the work I've done here. However, it's clear that the current direction and culture are no longer aligned with my values. Effective immediately, I am resigning from my position. Please consider this my formal notice. Sincerely, Betty Collins. I hit send. Then I packed my bag. No dramatic speech, no retaliation, I just left. Because sometimes silence is louder than rage, and sometimes walking away is the most powerful thing you can do. They thought they could erase me. They had no idea the clients they leaned on, their biggest accounts, weren't here because of Straithwell. They were here because of me. And by next week, they'd realize just how big of a mistake they'd made. I didn't cry on the way home. I didn't scream or throw things or call Amanda to debrief over wine and disbelief. I didn't even stop for coffee, which for me was basically unheard of. I just walked, quietly, through the parking garage, into my car, and back to my apartment, like a ghost retracing her old life. When I got inside, I sat on the floor. Not the couch, not the bed. The floor. I didn't even take off my coat. I just sat there, staring at nothing. It had happened so fast. 1 minute I was leading campaigns, hosting client dinners, juggling 6 accounts with a kind of effortless chaos only experience could bring. The next, I was jobless, stripped down by a man who hadn't even known my name a week ago, reduced to a punchline in a meeting I didn't deserve to be in. I kept replaying his words over and over. Being a cleaner is the best she can do. That line looped in my head like a broken record. I wasn't even sure which part hurt more, the insult, or how easily it seemed to fall from his mouth, like he'd decided I was disposable before even giving me a chance. How had it ended like this? How had I gone from top performer to completely erased? And why? Why did no one stop him? I curled my knees to my chest and rested my chin on them. For a long while, I just sat there, in silence. Not sad, exactly. Just lost. Like the GPS of my life had suddenly gone dark. The truth was, I didn't build my career from nothing. I inherited the roots of it. My father, Paul Collins, used to sit in the same chair I did. Same company, same position. He built a foundation of trust with some of the most influential clients we'd ever had. Clients who believed in personal connection, in integrity, in legacy. When he passed unexpectedly 5 years ago, I had only been a junior associate, fresh-faced, trying to prove myself. But the clients remembered me from dinners, from strategy calls where I quietly took notes, from holiday events where I helped him build the very relationships that kept the lights on at Straithwell. And when he was gone, They stayed. With me. Not because I was him, but because they saw him in me. I carried that weight every day like a quiet oath, to do right by them, to honor what he built. And for years, I did. I maintained those partnerships, grew them, modernized them, protected them. I earned their loyalty. And yet, it hadn't mattered. 1 week with a new CEO, one grudge-bearing SEO specialist, and I was cut out like rot. I hugged my knees tighter. I didn't know what came next. I didn't have a backup plan or a perfect business pitch or some magical safety net. I just had the quiet, and the disbelief, and the faintest, most fragile thought blooming at the edge of all the pain. They don't know what they just lost. And maybe, just maybe, I still had something left to build. It started quietly. A single email, nestled between spam and a subscription confirmation from a yoga studio I'd forgotten about. Subject: just heard. Is it true? From Morgan Ainsley, Virion Industries. My breath caught. Morgan was one of our longest-standing clients. My client. I'd onboarded him personally, shaped his entire digital campaign from the ground up. He never once complained. In fact, just 2 weeks ago, he called my work surgical. I opened the email. Betty, I just got wind of what happened at Straithwell. I need to know, did they really let you go? Because that can't be right. Everyone here is in shock. Call me, please. I sat there, reading it over and over. My heart beat harder than it had in days. And then came the second message, then a third, then texts, voicemails. Within 24 hours, my inbox turned into a flood. We heard what Jennings said. Disgusting. You built our campaign, Betty. You're the reason we stayed. Do you need backing? Tell us how we can help. I stared at my phone as it lit up again, buzzing with another familiar name, Raj Mehta from Gossinger Retail. He didn't even wait for me to say hello. Betty, I've been trying to reach you all morning, he said, his voice tight with frustration. I got an automated message saying you were no longer with Straithwell, and when I called them to ask why, all they said was that you didn't fit the new vision. I stayed silent. They're lying, he said firmly. We saw the numbers. You were our strategist. You are the reason we signed that extension. I closed my eyes. Thank you. That means more than you know. Don't thank me yet, he replied, because we're not staying. Not without you. I already called our legal team. We'll be severing the contract, and I'm not the only one. I pressed the phone closer to my ear. Wait, you're leaving Straithwell? He chuckled dryly. You think we want to be managed by a company that throws away its best talent? No. Wherever you go, that's where we're going. The words hit me like thunder. Wherever I go. It wasn't just outrage, it was belief. In me. And one by one, more clients followed. Some left Straithwell completely. Others put contracts on hold. One even pulled out mid-campaign. Every hour, another call, another message. They were furious. Not just for what happened, but because it proved something they'd long suspected, that the wrong people were being silenced, and the right people were being erased. I stood in the middle of my small living room, phone still in hand, knees shaking, not from fear this time, but from something else. Power. Real, earned, unapologetic power. I hadn't lost my career. I'd just been set free. And now, I had everything I needed to build something bigger. Not because I wanted revenge, because I was ready, because I was finally done being underestimated. It didn't take long for the cracks to show. Just 2 weeks after I walked out of Straithwell & Company, news of the client departures reached the business columns. Not just rumors, facts, confirmed pullouts, paused contracts, statements from companies that said things like, "Our confidence in management has eroded," and "We are reassessing all future engagements." The kind of quotes that make shareholders nervous. Internally, I heard from Amanda that chaos had replaced structure. Projects were flailing, deadlines missed, team morale collapsed. Clients were calling with questions no one could answer because the person who had always answered them wasn't there anymore. I wasn't surprised. Most of those clients didn't come to Straithwell for flashy campaigns or bold rebrands. They came for trust. They came because of me. And Vincent? Well, he learned that the hard way. I got the call at 9:03 a.m. on a Thursday. Unknown number. Straight to voicemail. But his voice, polished, professional, just a bit too forced, was unmistakable. "Betty, this is Vincent Hale. I'd like to discuss an opportunity to reconnect. It seems there may have been misunderstandings. We believe your skills could still serve a vital role at Straithwell. Please return my call." No apology. No acknowledgement of what he did, what he said, or how he dismissed me in front of a room full of colleagues. Just a carefully worded plea disguised as diplomacy. I stared at the phone, eyebrows raised. Not because I was tempted, but because I finally saw him clearly. The man who told me I wasn't coping. The man who told me cleaning up messes wasn't his problem. The man who let the CEO humiliate me and said nothing. Now he was calling me back, not because he respected me, but because he had no choice, because his systems were failing, because the very foundation he tried to dismantle had been mine all along. I didn't call him back, not yet, because now I was weighing options, not for a job, but for something bigger. They wanted me back? Fine. But the next conversation would happen on my terms. And this time, I wouldn't be working for Straithwell. I'd be deciding whether to acquire them. I waited exactly 3 days before returning Vincent's call. I kept my tone even. Warm, even. "I've been thinking," I said. There was a pause, then cautious relief. "We'd be glad to have you back," he said. "I'd like to stop by," I replied. "Tomorrow, around noon." The next morning, I got dressed with the kind of precision usually reserved for court appearances or closing ceremonies. Not a power suit, too obvious. I wore what I always wore when I meant business: a tailored navy blouse, high-waisted slacks, soft leather boots. Classic, understated, deadly. When I walked through the doors of Straithwell and Company, the receptionist froze mid-sip of her iced coffee. "Betty?" she whispered. I smiled. "Just here for a quick meeting." I didn't need a badge, didn't need to check in. People noticed. Heads turned. A few mouths opened, then shut again. It was a strange kind of déjà vu, like returning to a theater where I'd once been cast out mid-act. Vincent was waiting in the conference room, the same one where this all began. He looked rattled. He rose from his chair quickly, smoothing his tie. "Betty," he said with forced ease, "I'm glad you came. Let's talk." "Oh," I said, stepping fully into the room. "We'll talk, but not in private." I pushed the door open wider. People outside paused. I didn't care. I raised my voice just enough to carry through the glass walls. "You wanted me to come back," I said, meeting Vincent's eyes. "And here I am." He nodded. "Let's be constructive, Betty. We need—" "No," I cut in, stepping forward. You need the clients who left with me. You need the stability I built. You need the trust that I earned. And you thought I'd come crawling back because you finally realized your systems don't work without the people you walked all over." Vincent opened his mouth, but I didn't stop. "You said I wasn't coping, that it wasn't your problem, but the chaos in this building? That's your problem now. The mass exodus? Your problem. The revenue drop? Also your problem." The office was quiet. Staff had gathered by the door, pretending to check calendars, adjust blinds, anything to stay close enough to witness. "And the best part?" I said, smiling coldly. "You didn't just underestimate me. You underestimated every client who knew exactly who the value here really was." I took a step back, toward the door. "I'm not here to return," I said simply. "I came to tell you, face to face, that you've already lost. You just don't know how deep the damage goes yet." I turned to leave, then paused. "Oh, and Vincent?" He looked up, pale now. "You were right about one thing. I am better with a mop." I smiled. "Because I just cleaned house." Then I walked out, through the same doors I'd once been pushed through in silence, but this time with every step echoing like a victory drum. And behind me, only silence.